Hello. Hello. Hello.
I want to thank the Prime Minister's Office and our partners at Concert and the Ministry of Strategic Affairs for their support. This is a huge honor for us. 20 years ago, the people of Israel heard that we were all alone, that there weren't people who were standing with Israel, that we had to make a deal, we had to find a way, we had to disengage. But Prime Minister Netanyahu at the time said that's not true, that there are millions of friends around the world, people who stand with Israel. And it's because of that we started the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus and then the Israel Allies Foundation. And today, faith-based diplomacy is one of the most important weapons we have in our diplomatic arsenal. It's the reason we have anti-BDS legislation in the United States. It's one of the reasons why the embassy in the United States sits in Jerusalem. And it's why we have 40 Israel Allies caucuses around the world representing 1,000 members of parliament who are standing with Israel, taking their real biblical support and turning it to political action. And at the same time, we've got to see in the last 10 years what strong leadership has done for Israel. We are now not a small country. I think we're rated number 8 in the world, the most powerful country. In size, but we're small in size, but not in power. Our economy is booming. The issues of Iran and Jerusalem are now front and center, and people are starting to understand our point of view because of your incredible leadership. And in this room here, there are so many members of parliament and ministers and people who pray for you, who support you, and are thankful that you are one of the leaders of the free world today. So it's in that vein that we wanted to present to you our pledge, our next campaign, to stop the boycott of Jewish goods in Judea, Samaria, Jerusalem, and the Golan. Just like we did in the United States through the actions of our state legislation initiative of Alan Clemens, who's here today. We're going to work with our friends in the European Union to fight this illegal boycott of Jewish goods that, according to the World Trade Organization, is legal, and we're going to pursue this with all our might. So we just want to thank you for this honor, and we'd like to present this to you on behalf of the Israel Allies Foundation.
Go ahead, present it. Stand there. I'll come on.
Dr. Weldon, will you come?
Yeah.
Now, pick one with facing that way.
Everyone stand up.
Oh.
Thank you.
תודה, אדוני.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you all. It's a great encouragement to see the support that we receive from you, from many, many friends around the world. There are two kinds of friends that we have, friends of interest and friends of values. Sometimes they intersect as well. I think what is important about this group and this effort is that it is, first of all, based on values, the understanding of our common traditions, our common hopes for the kind of societies we want to see around the world, the society that Israel truly represents and that many aspire for, even though it is denigrated, vilified, slandered. You know the truth, and there's no substitute for speaking the truth in the face of lies. That's the only way that you get the truth out. So I want to thank you for standing with Israel and standing with the truth. That is a partnership based on values. You mentioned the other kind of partnership that is beginning to emerge. In fact, is not beginning to emerge. It's really now in every continent, in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, especially in Central and Eastern Europe, and with the United States as well. But that's a partnership based on interest. Israel has become a global power of innovation. We're in the midst of an economic revolution that We've not seen its parallel in history. I don't even think the Industrial Revolution can be compared to the Information Revolution. And essentially, it's the meeting ground of big data, connectivity, and artificial intelligence. That's what's creating these mega, monstrous, Amazon and Facebook and so on. These are classic businesses that are formed on the nexus of these three big things: big data, AI, and connectivity, and that's creating tremendous opportunities for Israel. The 10 largest companies in 2007 are. Do you have them by any chance? Are they there? Can't see it. But if you look at the 10 largest companies in 2007 and the 10 largest companies in 2017, yeah, if you can see that. Yeah. So take a look at this. You can't see it from there, but in 2007, 5 of the 10 largest companies in the world were energy companies. That's in black. And when you look at 2017, no energy companies are left. It's all blue. In blue, there was only one in 2007, Microsoft, and now actually they're all blue. Each one of these companies, as you can see, has a major research and development arm in Israel. Go back to that for a second. Okay? You see here? Every one of them. And some of them, that's the only R&D center that they have outside their home country. So Israel has become a powerhouse, and it's become not by accident because we instituted here a free market economy, which unleashed the genius that is in the Israeli people and the enterprise. And look what happened. This is where we made our reforms, big free market reforms, and you can see this tremendous surge of investments in Israel. So now Israel is being courted by just about every country in the world, including many Arab countries, including many Muslim countries, who are interested in getting civilian technology or military technology, and specifically they're interested in intelligence, counterterrorism intelligence, because terrorism is a plague that plagues all the world. And as a result, we have many new friends of interest, not values. Values come before interests, but interests also apply. So I want you to know that in the effort, when you're holding the torch, you're holding the torch of our common values, but there are others who see a different possibility in Israel, and that's the possibility of bettering the lives of their people or ensuring the security of their countries and so on. So that's an important change. I cannot tell you that our battle for our place under the sun has ended, because it hasn't. Because you mentioned BDS, you mentioned all these international organizations that are out to get us, and in many ways the worst are those of militant Islam, either the Shiite or the Sunni variety. The Shiites led by Iran, the Sunnis led by Al-Qaeda. That's what you see here. That's the red and the black. The red is ISIS, decimated in Syria and Iraq, trying to establish a base here in the Sinai. We've eliminated that. But equally, the greater danger is the one that you see from Iran that tries to establish now a continuous empire. Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen. They're out to conquer the Middle East, and they're out to destroy Israel. We're not going to let ourselves be destroyed. You can understand that?
Yes.
And in doing that, we are also protecting the world, not only the Arab countries, but the world from the specter of militant Islamic domination, conquest, and oppression by Iran. In this, I would say the one good thing that has happened is that this has brought Israel and many of the Arab states closer together. But again, these are alliances of interest. Alliances of values come first. So, you come first. And thank you. Thank you very much. Now, if you want to ask me any questions, go ahead. Please, go ahead. Please.
I'm Darren Miller from Wales in the United Kingdom. One of the things which many of us as legislators are concerned about is obviously we've seen the spectre of anti-Semitism on our own doorsteps, including in the UK with Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party. What sort of message, I've asked this question to someone else today, but what sort of message would you like to send to the people of the UK as they go to the polls this week?
Well, fight anti-Semitism. Fight anti-Semitism. This kind of hatred always starts with the Jews, but it never ends there. We've seen that in the terrible tragedies of the 20th century. I think it has to be fought and fought vigorously. And of course, we don't take any part in the British elections, but we are interested observers. Please go ahead. Please.
Riina Solman, Minister of Population of Estonia. Why is it important for Israel to annex Jordan Valley?
Because, well, it's hard to say this. I think Estonia is about the size of Israel.
Yes, 45,000.
No, it's bigger. Estonia is bigger than Israel. Okay. So now imagine Estonia smaller, okay, and made even smaller because, do you have a map of Israel? Okay. This is Israel. This is the West Bank. This is not a political map. We don't intend to cede the heart of our homeland. This is Gaza. The distance from the edge of the West Bank to the Mediterranean, as I've told President Trump, is the same distance as from the Trump Tower to the Washington Bridge. You got that? That's the distance. But if we have the Jordan Valley, which is right here, okay, the Jordan Valley, obviously we increase the strategic depth of Israel from 9 miles to about vast 40 miles, 50 miles. That's it. That's what happens. If we are able, by doing that, we're also protecting Jordan, which is right here. Because if a Palestinian state, what happened was we left Gaza, which you see there, okay? See there, Gaza is about 5% of the territory of the West Bank. But we left it, and what do you think happened? You think they established a free state for the Palestinians there? No. Militant Islam came in. Just as when we left southern Lebanon, militant Islam came in with Hezbollah, Iran really. We left Gaza, militant Islam came in, Iran again. Obviously they started, did they make peace with us? No. First of all, they established tyranny over their own people. And then they fire rockets into every part of Israel. So naturally, we don't want to replicate that here. And especially, it's important that if this were to happen here, then I would say that a militant Islamic state in the West Bank would jeopardize Jordan overnight. And the fact that we control that buffer right here, the Jordan Valley, this gives Israel strategic depth and protection not only for us, but also for, paradoxically, the Palestinians themselves. They're not going to be overrun by Hamas or Islamic Jihad or Daesh. And also we protect the neighboring state of Jordan. Now that is whispered in corridors. It's not openly said. The formal talk is the opposite. But people who understand the real situation here in the Middle East understand that Israel having the Jordan Valley is not only a prerequisite for Israel's security, it's a prerequisite for regional security. Yes.
Prime Minister, it's an honor to be with you.
Thank you.
I'm from Venezuela.
Indeed.
I'm representative of the truly democratic government of President Guaido.
Oh, not the truly democratic Republic of Maduro.
He's our foreign minister.
Yes.
But what I want to underline is that far from here in Latin America, there is also a battle of values. And there is a system in which Maduro, Cuba, and other radical governments are promoting anti-democratic values,
Yeah.
anti-Semitic values in all the region. Also, we are concerned and we are almost convinced that there are links to radical groups like Hezbollah, for example.
It's definite. There's no question about it. I can confirm that too.
Yeah, and so my concern for all of you is that we have this problem as we are friends of values. For us, it's very important to share this real challenge that we have in order to promote a global peace and democracy. And we have this kind of shadow in Latin America that is threatening the whole region.
Well, as you know, I was one of the leaders of governments that recognized
Absolutely.
the greater government, yes. And this is because of the commonality of values. The fact that you have aggression that stems from dictatorial regimes is not surprising, because I don't know if you ever read Immanuel Kant's extraordinary treatise, The Permanent Peace. And he says basically what Kant says is this. He says there are two kinds of peace in the world. There's peace of democracies, which is natural, because democracies reflect the will of the people. Most people don't want to go to war. And there's peace opposite dictatorships. And he said that's the peace of deterrence, because dictators get to power by oppressing their own people, practice aggression against their own people. So what will prevent them from practicing aggression against their neighbors? And the answer is nothing, if they're not deterred. So the peace opposite democracies is natural and requires nothing, whereas the peace opposite dictatorship requires permanent deterrence. So far in the Middle East, we're not surrounded by democracies. So if you're very strong and you have the power to deter and prevent aggression, then you'll prevent it. And if you're weak, you won't. I think the greatest tragedies in the history of humanity occurred in the 20th century, when democracies failed to distinguish between these two kinds of peace. And opposite the worst dictatorship in history, Nazi Germany, they practiced the peace of democracies, not the peace of deterrence. Well, we've learned that lesson, and so should everyone else. We recognize your government, we recognize your democracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't you choose?
Alan Clens, and then the member of parliament from Sweden, and member of parliament over there from Sierra Leone.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. It's truly an honor to be here with you today. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
giving us some of your time. I am a proud American and very proud of my president for making good on his promises
Yeah.
with regard to Israel. Most recently, of course, being a pushback against what I consider to be the lie of occupation in Judea and Samaria, and what I think our president believes as well. So he has certainly given the U.S.'s stamp of legitimization of Israel's place in Judea and Samaria. Share with us what you believe the next steps are after that policy announcement.
I think it was a very important statement, because it simply reflects a historical fact. We're not occupiers in a strange land. We're not the Belgians in the Congo, We're not the Dutch in Indonesia, even though I have great respect for Belgium and Holland. We're not. We are, this has been our homeland for 3,500 years, since Abraham came here. Where does the word Jew come from? It comes from Judea, Judea, right here. And in my office, you have a small seal, signet seal of a ring, of one of the officials of King Hezekiah. King Hezekiah ruled after King David about 2,700 years ago, almost 3,000 years ago. And the seal, which was found next to the present Western Wall, has a name of the official. You know what the name is? It's in Hebrew. Yeah, his name is Netanyahu. Netanyahu ben Yoash. So we've been around here a long time, And we're not trying to push anyone out, but no one's going to push us out. And I think the president's statement has made an important contribution to truth. Stand with Israel, stand with the truth. He did. Thank you. Yes.
I'm representing the European Christian Political Movement, and I think I have a question which comes or gives us concern to many of us. Peace between Palestinian and Jewish people also depends on their authority. And we know Mr. Mahmoud Abbas is pretty old and he's ruling pretty long time, dismantling the parliament. Who do you think would be his successor Do you have any clue what's going on among them?
I have no idea. I have enough with our own politics. Please. Sir.
Saludos desde Colombia, primer ministro.
Hello from Colombia, Prime Minister.
Thank you.
Agradecerle al Estado de Israel habernos enseñado la lucha contra el terrorismo sin violar derechos humanos.
Thank you to the State of Israel, to that taught us how to fight terrorism within human rights.
Soy senador de la República en Colombia, presidente de la Comisión de Derechos Humanos.
I am Senator of the Colombian Republic and President of the Commission of Human Rights.
Una pregunta,
One question.
¿podemos estar seguros en el Medio Oriente y en Occidente que ni China ni Rusia están ayudando a Irán y no hay problema con el enriquecimiento de uranio?
Can we be sure in Latin America and in the Middle East that Russia and China are not helping Iran to develop and enrich uranium right now?
Gracias.
Thank you.
Well, they are because they're not joining the sanctions, the U.S. sanctions. They're not necessarily helping Iran directly technologically. Somebody else is. But they are they're trying to defy American sanctions. You have to understand the Iranian nuclear deal is like a highway to nuclear enrichment, enriching uranium. If I have to explain what nuclear weapons are, think of it as a gun, okay? So the gun is the missile, something to launch the bullet with. The bullet has an encasing. That's the weapon. But the most important part of any system is the explosive. That's the gunpowder. You cannot have, a gun is useless without gunpowder, you understand that? You can have as many bullets as you want, nothing will happen. The gunpowder is the secret. The gunpowder in the case of an atomic bullet, in an atomic gun, called a ballistic missile, or plane, is basically enriched uranium. Enriching uranium is very, very hard to do. It's very hard. It's a big industrial process, okay? And what Iran achieved in the deal was to say, okay, I will not enrich uranium for a single bomb for a few years in exchange for receiving unlimited enrichment in a few years. So I would have 100 bombs, 200 bombs worth of enriched uranium. That was this deal. And in addition for that, I will receive hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars by removing sanctions. It was the worst possible deal because the money that they received helped them set out on the empire. Right after they got the deal, they got the money and they started pouring it, not in improving the roads or hospitals or anything in Iran, but to make this empire. That's what they're doing. They're making this empire, okay? And at the same time, they just have to wait a few years and they'll get unlimited enrichment, unlimited gunpowder for unlimited number of bombs. That was why I opposed the deal. I said the deal should not be given to Iran based on a change of calendar. It should be given to Iran on the basis of a change of behavior. Stop your aggression. Stop your terrorism. Stop the murder that you did. They probably murdered over 20 peaceful demonstrators in Baghdad 2 days ago. That's Iran. And they do this everywhere. So that's why we opposed the deal. I had to stand alone, really, against the major powers of the world because they wanted the deal, and I went to the United States Congress, which wasn't an easy thing to do, to oppose a sitting U.S. president. But I did, because I thought this endangers Israel and endangers the entire world. And I'm happy to say that, right before the elections, I met Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. They were running for president of the United States, and I met both of them the same day. And I said, you got to get out of this deal. It threatens the survival of Israel, but it threatens the world. Because if Iran develops ballistic missiles, they're going to develop them to reach every part of the world, including the United States, and they're going to have An arsenal. Can you show? Yeah, that's it. That's what they're developing. Missiles that can reach. I guess they don't reach Latin America. You're safe, but everybody else, is in their sights, and that has to stop, or in the upper part of Greenland or something like that. That has to stop, and I'm glad that Donald Trump agreed with me, and he's done an extraordinary thing because Iran's empire now is tottering. There are demonstrations in Baghdad, there are demonstrations in Beirut, there are demonstrations in Tehran, and they're tottering. And I say, let them totter more. More pressure. Yes, please.
I'm Joe Horn, Dutch Parliament MP. I'm wondering, there's some rumors about Israel maybe presuming you'll be the next Prime Minister.
That's a good assumption, but we have to work on it. No.
That maybe Israel will annex Jerusalem, Samaria, Judea, and if that happens, what will that mean for the peace process? Will it be completely dead? Do you see any future for the peace process with the Palestinians?
Well, we're talking about the Jordan Valley, and we're talking about Israeli communities in Judea, Samaria that are going to stay there anyway. Nobody thinks that you're going to uproot. What is this ethnic cleansing that the whole world aspires to in the name of peace? I mean, should I say that we have 1 million Israeli citizens who are basically Palestinians? Okay, the Arab Israeli citizens, I don't say, oh, we can't have peace, they have to leave Israel, let's forcibly get them out. Why is the vision of peace, even the peace of 2 states that people put forward, require ethnic cleansing? Why? What is this strange idea? Don't you have in Holland some Belgian enclaves, and in Belgium some Dutch enclaves? Yeah, you have 1 or 2 of those? Yeah, I think you do. You don't even know it. And do you live in peace? Yeah, but okay, but you live in peace, right? Okay, so that's good. So peace does not require ethnic cleansing. That's a crazy idea. And what we're talking about is applying Israeli sovereignty to the Jordan Valley, which is a small part, but is a crucial part in preventing entry and smuggling of weapons and terrorists into Israel, and also into the West Bank, into Judea, Samaria. And the second is those communities that are going to remain anyway should be part of Israel. Now, you want such a community? All you have to do is look out this window, not this window, another window here. You'll go for, 500 meters. You'll go into the former West Bank. So now Jerusalem is composed roughly half is in the old 67 lines, and the other half, right there, it's the continuation of a street. This street is across the theoretically in the West Bank. So what are we going to do? Take half of Jerusalem, which is about, not half, but about a third. It's about 200,000, 300,000 people. And we're going to, what are we doing? We're going to do, take them out? Are we going to expel them from their homes? That's crazy. We're not going to do that. Any more than I'm going to expel Arabs from their homes, Arabs who live in Israel. So in fact, everybody recognizes that there are going to be parts of Judea and Samaria, before we get into arguments about anything else, that are going to stay part of Israel. They're not going to be removed. That's what we're talking about right now. Okay, but we have to win an election first. Yes, please.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for receiving us. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for your time. My name is Lars Adaktusson. I'm a member of the Swedish Parliament, representing Sweden, but I'm happy that I'm not representing the Swedish government, which literally have destroyed the relations between our countries through the unilateral decision to recognize the Palestinian state back in 2014. My question is, it would be interesting to hear your view on the effects of this decision to recognize the Palestinian state unilaterally. What has that meant to the dialogue and to the possibility to have a functioning peace process?
Well,
my second question, excuse me, this morning I asked Mr. Lapid, who visited us about the present political situation when it comes to foreign policy. I asked him about the difference between a government led by Mr. Gantz and a government led by Mr. Netanyahu when it comes to foreign policy and the relations to the neighborhood in the Middle East. I would like to ask you the same question. Thank you.
I can tell you my policy. I'm not sure I know what their policy is. Usually to Israeli audiences, they say it's the same, because people don't buy the policies of the left and they have to hide the fact that they're left. So they just say, basically they say, whatever Netanyahu says, it's okay here. He may not have said that to you, but he did? Yeah. Well, they oppose things that I support. For example, they didn't support my challenge to Iran. Mr. Lapid said when I went to the Congress that this would destroy our relations with the United States. It was a bad move. Okay? Was he right? No, he was wrong. He said that we're going into a terrible period of isolation, you know. We're so isolated, I don't have time on my calendar for the number of visitors. If we could have 3 times a day, that's what would happen. Israel is branching out because the world is, as I said, is coming to Israel because Israel is leading the world in so many areas. Once we liberated our economy, that's key. Which they opposed too, by the way. Once we liberated our economy, we became a very powerful force in technology. You can't do technology if you have 65% marginal tax rates. You can't do technology if you can't take more than $1,000 out of a bank without a clerk in the central bank giving you an authorization to do so. Can you imagine? This was Israel when I took over. I mean, it was a very strange thing. And so we did not hundreds, but about 60 major reforms, which transferred our economy, made it big. But in foreign policy, I think the difference is that I believe that strength buys you peace and recognition and non-belligerence. And my opponents think that, how shall I say, concessions buy you peace. They do if you're opposite democracies. They don't if you're opposite dictatorships. They haven't read Kant. And I doubt that if they read him, they'll understand very much what he says. That's the difference. I don't want to get into it.
Swedish recognition, sir.
Yeah. Last one. Last one. Yes, please. You choose. I don't want to get into that.
We'll go with the one pastor who's here.
Mr. Prime Minister, honored to be with you. If I can ask a lighter question, I'm more the biblical side rather than the political side. How significant is it to the nation of Israel and to the world discovering the pilgrimage road? That, you mentioned the little seal. The pilgrimage road is not a little thing.
It's a big thing. Yeah, it's a big thing. Look, I think that for many people around the world, Christians around the world, they sometimes are not aware of the fact that the stories that are described in the Bible and in the New Testament have taken place in a real location. I mean, it's all here, and I grew up with it, and I read not only the Bible, but I read also. My father's teacher was the great historian Joseph Klausner, who wrote 2 very important books, Jesus of Nazareth and From Jesus to Paul. I remember him. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, I'll tell you a story about him. Then I'll tell you about the Pilgrimage Road. So Klausner, we lived in a northern suburb of Jerusalem, neighborhood called Talpiot. And I was 3 years old. My older brother, Jonathan, was 6. And we would go every Saturday to visit this great historian, Professor Klausner. At the time, he was in his 70s. Doesn't seem that old to me now, but at the time he did. And he had a beard, a goatee beard. He was like from Heidelberg. He was a great European Jewish scholar. So, of course, I didn't read his books then. It took me a few years. But, we were told by my mother to bring him flowers. So we collected flowers in the field, and I put them in my pocket. And we would have this ritual. We would knock on his door. He lived in a beautiful house. And he said, he would say, "Hello, children." We'd say, "Hello, Professor Klausner." He said, "Please come in." We'd walk into his salon, you know, and there was a big piece of furniture there. He would open the drawer and he would take out a box of chocolates. And then he would offer us chocolates. But before that, he would always ask a question. "Tell me, children, did you come to see me or did you come to get the chocolates?" And my brother, Yoni, he knew what to say. He said, "Oh no, Professor Klausner, we came to see you." And every time he would give us the chocolates, that would be it. That was the extent of our discussion. Well, we did this week after week, and one day we came in. "Hello, come in, children. Tell me, Jonathan, did you come to see me or to have the chocolates?" "No, I came to see you, Professor Klausner." "And you, Benjamin?" I was 3 years old. I had no idea what to say, you know. And I went like this, and I just took out the flowers and gave the flowers, and I got the chocolate. You know, I got the chocolate. So Klausner wrote a lot about the emergence of Christianity, the emergence and divergence of Christianity from Judaism, and it all happened here. And I think that when you go to the Siloam Pool, which is going to be excavated and completed soon, it'll be great. It's huge, and you see the road that leads up to the Temple Mount, and you see the origins of our common heritage and the tremendous contribution to all of humanity that emerged from this land. The prophecies, the great prophets. I read the portion of the Torah every week. My son came at the age of 15, was number 3 in the world in the Bible championship. You know what that's like? That's like a spelling competition on steroids. It's very hard. It's very hard. So he's my teacher. What does it mean? It means that the values that I mentioned originated here, and those values have to be safeguarded. But you can see them. You can see the story, the actual story, you know, from Abraham to the kings of Israel, the prophets of Israel, to Jesus, and afterwards, what happened here. It's all there to be seen, and I hope you bring as many people to come and see it. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for what you do. Thank you. Thank you, sir. If on the seaboard, no?
True honor. Thank you.
Thank you.